Heading into the weekend, the American Conservative published, quote, "Had there been an attempt on the life of President Joe Biden or Russia's President Vladimir Putin or their counterparts in France or the UK, there would deservedly have been endless coverage. But the May 7th attempted assassination of Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy by high-ranking Ukrainian officers elicited only the necessary reporting and a shocking dearth of investigation. That the assassins were recruited by Russia and that the assassination was supposed to be a gift to Putin before his inauguration has been asserted without evidence by Ukraine's state security service, the SBU. What is known is that 2 colonels in Ukraine's State Protection Service, the Ukrainian equivalent to the U.S. Secret Service, have been charged with treason and arrested. One of them faces the additional charge of aiding in the preparation of a terrorist act," end quote. Now, the author of this piece, Ted Snyder, he goes on to explain, quote, "The unproven Russian involvement may be real or may be an attempt to recast an embarrassing internal coup as a Russian plot. Either way, it does not bode well for Ukraine. If Russia was running the operation, then it reveals a capacity for extensive Russian infiltration of the highest levels of the Ukrainian military and security. If Russia was not running the operation, then it reveals dissatisfaction, dissent, and disorder in the Ukrainian military," end quote. And this comes amid news that the Russians waltzed into Kharkiv after being rebuffed 2 years ago because many of the fortifications that Western money was supposed to be paying for were never built. So our first guest tonight has a new 12-part docu-series which blows the lid on what's really happening in this NATO proxy war. Here's the trailer for Zelenskyy Unmasked.
So Tucker Carlson interviews Vladimir Putin and the world loses its mind. Could it be because they're terrified you'll find out that the whole narrative surrounding Zelenskyy and Ukraine is a fraud? I'm Ben Swan. Our 12-part docuseries, Zelenskyy Unmasked, is getting ready to drop on truthinmedia.com and on X at truth_in_media. We're going to tell you things about Ukraine that nobody else is brave enough to tell you and give you detailed interviews and facts that will show you exactly what's going on in Ukraine and why the United States needs to reconsider its position.
Joining us now to discuss his new docu-series is Ben Swan, the founder and CEO of Truth in Media. Ben, thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Great. So Ukraine's government is freewheeling a bit right now. There's disarray over this alleged assassination scheme. Zelenskyy has had to fire top-ranking officials in the past over corruption allegations. He obviously faces corruption allegations all the time himself. Is none of this surprising to you given your research for this docu-series?
Yeah, it's really not surprising. And I would say there's another element to all of this, which is the fact that as of this week, in fact, as of today, Zelenskyy's term as president has come to an end. And this is something that's really getting almost no coverage in the United States at all. So in Ukraine, presidents are elected for 5-year terms. Well, his term actually ends today. There was supposed to be an election held back in March, but because they're involved in a war, the elections were suspended. And the thing is this, when you talk about, well, how long have they been suspended for? We're hearing it's indefinite. There's no end in sight. So Zelenskyy right now, in the midst of all of this, is a president who has declining approval ratings. He's really going down in the polls. He's gone from about 90% support to about 63% support. And back in March, there was another poll, and this is kind of interesting too, that was done about his popularity. And if an election had been held in March, would he have won? And according to the polling, he actually would not have. And the man who would have won is a general, his former commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian military services, who Zelenskyy just fired because he said the war is at a stalemate. So it's very interesting to see all these kind of pieces playing out at the same time.
It really is, but Ben, didn't you see Blinken? He was just in Kiev and he was, rocking in the free world. Neil Young, he had his guitar out and everything. So elections, I mean, really, who needs it, right? You had Blinken out there and he was just jamming away because he's telling Ukraine basically you want to side with the West. Well, this is what democracy, quote unquote, TM, democracy, TM, trademark. That's what it means by the West. No elections, the elites in power, they don't care what the people think. So I think it's playing out in real life, sadly, in Ukraine. But talk to us about your docu-series. You talk about, obviously, in the trailer that there's some things that people may not know about this war that is covered by the docu-series. I know, obviously, you don't want to give too much away. You want people to watch it, but what nuggets can you give the audience?